Hey, I'm Sam, welcome to Brickwall Pictures, and welcome to my end of the year review thing. I'm going to be just doing a quick little rundown for the end of the year of everything that I watched, read, played, and wrote this year, 2021. Let's start off with the writing, because I don't talk about that too much on this channel. I mostly talk about other people's work. 2021 was the first year where I decided to keep track of the number of words I wrote each day. This is what the spreadsheet looks like. I had a total of 452 writing sessions this year, and a grand total of 667,809 words. I don't really know how that compares to other years because, like I said, I've never tracked it before. I think, just general feeling, I feel like I wrote less this year than last year. But now I have a target to try to beat for next year. So, and if you're curious, that equaled out to 3 new feature film scripts, 2 new pilots, 1 new novel, which is, it's not coming out super soon. So it'll be a while. It's just in first draft phase right now. And then a bunch of new drafts of older scripts. So if you heard those numbers and you're like, wow, that's a lot of writing, then let me show you how many energy drinks I had this year, because that might help explain it. This is plus 1 right here. I don't exactly know why I decided to keep track of energy drinks this year. I guess I just thought it'd be interesting. And I'm not going to count them because that would be tedious, and I have a strong suspicion that nobody gives a shit, and that's including myself, so just got to move on. We'll save films for last because that's the one that I definitely got through the most of, but I also kept track this year of books I read and games I played. I only kept track of things I finished. So I have there's a bunch of books and a bunch of games that I've started and not finished. I think there's a couple in here that I did jump ship, but I marked anyway for reasons I will get into. Let's start off with the books. These are the books I read in 2021. It's not really all that many. I don't make as much time for reading as I should, pretty much just like for a couple minutes before I go to bed, and a lot of times on like the bus if I'm taking the bus somewhere, but you know, sometimes crazy motherfuckers are getting into knife fights on the bus, so you kind of got to maintain your spatial awareness on there. So anyway, let's see, books. First one I finished in January was Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier. I might do a video about that one eventually. I would guess probably at least half the books I read this year were Zoller's books, because I was finishing off his The Forbidden Surgeries of the Hideous Dr. Venus, which I then followed up with The Slanted Gutter, both of which I reviewed. You can find those reviews on the channel. I also read The Secret History of Las Vegas, which was an odd one. I just liked the title, picked it up, thought it might have been a nonfiction thing at first, and then I read the description and realized there was like a super dark detective mystery kind of thing. It had parts of it that I really liked, and then it had some like really brutal, grotesque violence that I'd never seen before, and it conjured up some pretty strong mental images, so I like it on that front. But then I didn't really like the overall story. It's mashing together some things that don't quite fit. It's like half of it's a detective story set in Las Vegas, and the other half is a story about apartheid in Africa, and it's all told in flashback. And each of those are interesting on their own, but they don't mesh at all. It feels like 2 completely separate stories being told, and there's like no cohesion between them whatsoever. Also, just the writing style wasn't quite for me, I don't think. Hung Chicken Penny, another Zoller joint. Reviewed that one, and then I read The Exorcist, which I was thinking about doing a video on, not necessarily a book review, but like comparing the book to the movie, because they're extremely different, but I don't know, I might not get around to that. And then, I didn't even write this one down, but I just finished Tarantino's novel, his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood novelization, which I think I'm going to review, so I'll hold my tongue on that for now. So yeah, that was it. Didn't read too many books this year. 2 games. Now, I have a bad habit of starting a lot of games and not finishing them, so you'll notice that the ones that I did finish are mostly like shorter ones. Super Mario World. That super old game. I finally got a Switch, never had one before. And of course I bought it like the week before they announced that Switch Pro upgrade thingy, so I got the old one right as a new one. Whatever. But yeah, the old ass Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, it was included with the Switch, so I played that. Then I played through Ghost of Tsushima, which is probably the biggest game I got through. Loved it. Thought it was excellent. Then Mario 3D Worlds, that's a Switch game, of course, and Bowser's Fury. I got that combo pack thing, played through both of those. The Bowser's Fury one is really short. Then I played through Frostpunk. Now, I didn't really play like all of Frostpunk, because I guess there's like 3 scenarios, like 3 campaigns kind of. I played through the first one, finished that. That was enough for me to write it in this book. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. I would play through the other 2 at some point, but yeah. Super Hot, played through that. Super short. It's only like 2 letters off of super short, actually. It's a lot of fun. I feel like the VR version must be way more fun, but I do not have VR, can't afford it, don't have the space for it. Still a pretty fun time, but you can get through it in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's very short. Slay the Spire, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. I finished the first one of that Phoenix Wright trilogy. I have the trilogy. I've been playing through the second one much more slowly. The second one hasn't grabbed me in the way that the first one did. Then I played Grow Home, which was this little, it was like $1.99 on the PSN one day, so I picked it up. It's just a little climbing game where you're a little robot, you gotta climb up a big beanstalk. I don't know. Again, it's another game you can beat in like an hour and a half, so that's why it's on this list. Then I played through Absolver. I didn't finish it. I put this one on here because I played enough to decide, okay, I'm never going to finish this, because this is not for me. I like the idea like a martial arts style video game, but I just did not enjoy it. I didn't like the online only game. It's just not for me. I get why some people like it because the theory is cool, but not my kind of thing. Next I played Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Played through that one. It was pretty fun. I didn't love it as much as some people did. Then Donkey Kong Adventure, that's another old Super Nintendo one. Resident Evil 8. Me and my buddy Christian, who you might recognize from the drinking videos on this channel, actually shot a review for Resident Evil 8 when it was brand new. And it was another drinking video. We got drunk and tried to review Resident Evil 8, and it was such a shit show that we recorded for like 6.5 hours, and I have just, I've been chipping away at it very slowly in the edit, but it's not exactly relevant anymore, so I don't even know if I'll bother finishing that one. But we recorded it like the weekend that the game released. Anyway, I played through Her Story after hearing it recommended from a Game Maker's Toolkit, because I became a fan of that channel this year. This is the Police 2. Fuck that game. Awful. Propaganda bullshit. 12 minutes, that game. Not good. A lot of people hate it because of the big swing it takes in the narrative department. That's actually not my issue with it whatsoever. I think it's a little bit of an issue, actually, that so many people are criticizing the game based on the fact that it does something different with video game storytelling. And it's kind of like, well, no wonder why video game storytelling moves at such a glacial pace in terms of like actually advancing the storytelling of the medium. Because when someone takes a big swing like this, everyone goes, oh, what the fuck, you can't do that in a video game story. It's like, well, I think you can do it in a video game story. I just don't like the way it was executed. I'm not even talking about the story, I'm just talking about like the gameplay. Like I think it looks awful, even though it's just like a top-down game. Like you should be able to make that look decent without spending a ton of money. They had big voice actors, so there's clearly some money involved, but like the big voice actors, right? Like James McAvoy's in the lead role, Daisy Ridley's in the other lead role. You wouldn't know it was either of them unless you saw the advertising, because the characters are so poorly directed, I would say. It's not their vocal performances that are bad, it's that like everything they say sounds like they had no idea what the context was. It's like every line is recorded in a vacuum. And if I keep talking about it, I'm going to end up reviewing that whole game, and I don't really want to do that, so I want to move on. The next game I played was Celeste, which, holy shit, wow, it lived up to all the hype, very good. Puts a lot of other platformers to shame. Then I played through Mafia Definitive Edition. Then I played John Wick Hex, or I tried it out anyway. I did a few levels, and then that was another one where I was like, okay, not digging it. John Wick is so ripe for a video game adaptation, but they made it this weird timeline-based and grid-based strategy game. It's like, why, of all the ways to make a John Wick game, chose that way. Then I played Moonlighter, which again I didn't like. I really wanted to though, because I think the concept of it is kind of brilliant. Hello Neighbor, which I guess was a big game. I thought it was fucking horrible. It was the worst game I played all year by far. Also, I didn't even realize it was supposed to be a horror game until I looked into it after the fact. I was playing it and got no inkling that it was supposed to be scary. Terrible. It looks so, like the art design is awful. Like the character design is so bad in that game. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was another game that I had no clue was meant to be scary until after I finished it, and then looked up and saw it was categorized as a horror game. So it's a complete failing on that front. It just felt like a boring-ass walking simulator to me, so I don't know. Anyway, that was all that I played and read this year. Now we're going to get into the main attraction, which is all the movies I watched and TV shows, actually. Got movies and TV in this whole book here. Okay, starting off in January of 2021, the very first thing I watched on January 1st, first watch of the year, was Possessor. Possessor Uncut, I should say, because there are 2 different cuts of it. And I talked about this movie on That Fat Samurai Guy's channel. Check the description, I'll pop a link in there to the video on his channel. There's like a live stream review thing that we did. Then I watched The Last Temptation of Christ, which I watched specifically for my Scorsese tier list. Again, link in the description. I'll just put all of my tier lists, the tier list playlist in there. I don't want to talk about that one. I watched, I don't even want to talk about it. I watched Louis' new special, just out of curiosity. I wanted to see if he addressed the allegations and all that, which he kind of did, but like, not in the best way, very dismissive of it, I don't know. Anyway, then I watched The Big Fat Quiz of 2020. I love The Big Fat Quiz and all those British panel shows. Then I watched Promising Young Woman, which I actually saw at an early screening. I saw that pre-release. Then I rewatched Twin Peaks Season 3. I rewatched my Blu-ray copy of it, and it was so great going through that. I had watched like the first half of it a second time already. This time I started at the beginning again, watched the entire thing, almost like in one sitting. Not quite, but like maybe like 2 sittings, the full series arc, and it was so great. I enjoyed it even more on a second watch. I think it's like perfect now. All the little things I had that were issues with it on the first watch now became strengths on rewatch, which is crazy. I watched Come to Daddy on Prime, that Elijah Wood horror movie. I liked the third act a lot and didn't really like the first 2 acts all that much, but the third act made it worthwhile for me. I got a screener link to Tenet, so I watched that, which I talked about in my Christopher Nolan tier list. Check out that video. I watched Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Excellent. Deserves all the hype it got. I watched I Used to Go Here because I like the cast. I like Gillian Jacobs and Jermaine Clement. Loved the 2 of them. And that movie I did not like it at all. Just didn't think it was funny. Then I watched Season 1 of How To with John Wilson. That is such a special show. Big recommendation. Well, I can't recommend it to everybody because it is very weird. It gets better as it goes along too. Like the first episode, I was just like, what is going on here? Why is this an HBO show? Because it kind of just feels like something that could be on the YouTube channel, you know? But then as it moves along, you see what's happening. It's a style all its own. It's kind of like its own medium, this docu-comedy hybrid thing. And it's incredible. There's some really good stuff in there. It's executive produced by Nathan Fielder, and if you like Nathan Fielder, I think you'll probably like How To with John Wilson as well, but it is very different. It's very distinctly John Wilson of the title, that guy, who is, unique is just the best word to describe it. Very funny and insightful and touching in certain ways. Then I watched Paris, Texas. Love that movie. Love Harry Dean Stanton. Then I watched Kong Skull Island, in preparation of Godzilla vs. Kong. And it was okay. It's not really my kind of movie. I actually enjoyed it a little more than I expected to, but, it's just not my kind of thing. I thought there was some good filmmaking on display there, though. What's that guy's name? Jordan Voight Roberts, something like that. I think he's a talented dude. Desperado, rewatched that one. Because I was thinking of doing a video on it and then didn't end up getting around to it. Fleabag Season 1. Took me way too long to get to Fleabag. It's incredible. Great show. Then I watched Sound of Metal. Excellent, deserved all the awards attention that it got on. Letterboxd, by the way. I've never plugged this, but I'm on Letterboxd. If you want to follow me on there, you can check the description. You'll see a link to my @ on Letterboxd. You can add me on there. Anyway, in my little Letterboxd review, I predicted it would win 3 Oscars. It ended up winning 2, and that's because I didn't know that they combined the 2 sound design categories. I was still thinking there were 2. That's why I said 3. They combined sound editing and sound mixing into just best sound, which is, they usually went to the same movie anyway, so I guess it's not a big deal, but I don't know. It seems a little disrespectful to all the sound engineers and sound editors and mixers and all that, I don't know. And that was January, so that's 16 things in January. 2 of those were rewatches, and 4 of those were TV seasons. I know a lot of people watch more TV than movies. Actually, I definitely don't. It takes me a long time to watch TV shows usually. I don't binge watch very often just because it makes me feel really unproductive. And if I ever watch more than the most I can do is 2 episodes at a time, and then I get this awful feeling of you should be writing right now and I gotta turn it off. So I struggle with the whole binge watching. I can't do it. Anyway, February, Fleabag Season 2 was the first thing that I got through. Fleabag was a quick watch. I did the math on it. You can actually watch the entire season of Fleabag in less time than it takes you to watch Tenet. So, there you go. Fleabag Season 2, even better than Season 1, which was already incredible. The Boys season 1, watched that, enjoyed it. And I'm not a superhero fan. I feel like it's a superhero show made for people who weren't superhero fans. It's very cynical in that way. Next, I watched Rolling Thunder, which I reviewed. A link to that review is in the description. Then I watched Walking Tall, the old one, the original, not the remake. And then I watched Mobius, which was the South Korean Mobius. There's a bunch of movies called Mobius. I watched the South Korean one, and I reviewed it. Link to that review is in the description. Then I watched The Wanderers. That was another one that I watched for a video on that Fat Samurai Guy's channel. It was the Warriors versus the Wanderers versus the Outsiders. So I'll link to his video on that too. It was another live stream. Then I rewatched The Sting. One of my favorite movies ever is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and The Sting is a re-team of Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and the director, whose name I always forget for some reason. His name is, I'm gonna fucking sit right here until I can think of his name. George Roy Hill. Got there. George Roy Hill. I just needed a second. Killing Eve season 1. Actually, I think I had been, I write down the date that I finished watching a TV season. I think I had been working on Killing Eve for like a couple months already. It's a good show. It's Phoebe Waller-Bridge is involved again, who, is obviously the Fleabag creator and star. Then I watched A Better Tomorrow, the John Woo movie. Then I watched The Kid Detective after Red Letter Media did a little spotlight on it, and I enjoyed it a whole lot, and I appreciate them spotlighting it because I had never heard of it, and I've never heard anyone else talk about it either. So I watched The Love Witch on Joe Bob's series. Love me some Joe Bob Briggs. For me, Shudder's like the Joe Bob service. Love Joe Bob Briggs, love The Last Drive-In. And I watched The Love Witch and then Castle Freak, both on Joe Bob's with his hosting. I watched American Mary, and then I watched Judas and the Black Messiah, which I thought was excellent. That's 14 things. 3 were TV seasons. 1 was a rewatch. Now we're to March. Started off with Killing of a Chinese Bookie, which I'm a big fan of John Cassavetes. That was my least favorite of his so far that I've seen. Still liked it, but didn't love it like I loved his previous movies that I'd seen. Namely, A Woman Under the Influence, which I love, and Opening Night was great. And then I watched another one later on that I also liked more than this, which was Faces, I think. I finally watched season 1 of Seinfeld. That's one of those like classic shows I just never watched. Still haven't finished season 2 yet, but I'll get there eventually. Blade of the Immortal, that Takashi Miike film. Excellent. I don't know why I didn't get talked about more. It's very much in line with 13 Assassins, but a little more high stylized. It is very episodic, which is the downside, but it's very good. The action is incredible, and the battle scenes are so massive. No one does big, huge, multi-way sword fights like Miike. Okay, then I watched The Street Fighter. That's the old Sonny Chiba, The Street Fighter, not the video game movie. Love me some Sonny Chiba. The guy's a lot of fun. Okay, Nomadland I saw, and I liked. I get why it's divisive. I did like it though. Withnell and I, that became like an instant favorite of mine. It's so quotable. My heart's beating like a fucked clock. There's so many good quotes in that movie. Richard E. Grant, is that the guy's name? His performance as the titular Withnell is like one of the defining performances of like a drunk character or like an addict character I've ever seen. He's so great in it, and he's hilarious. The other guy's not as compelling, but the grandfather or uncle or whatever from Harry Potter is in it. I'd never seen him in anything else, and he is goddamn magnetic in this movie. He's captivating and kind of terrifying. Withnell and I, big recommendation if you've never seen it. Thought about doing a video about it, didn't get around to it. The next one, though, I did make a video about Polytechnique. One of Denis Villeneuve's early films, made a video about that, and I did a Denis Villeneuve tier list, so check out both those videos. Then I watched Another Round, aka Druck, the Mads Mikkelsen film. Covered that in my Mads Mikkelsen week. There will be a Mads Mikkelsen playlist in the description that covers Druck, Men and Chicken, and Riders of Justice. Then I watched The Vanishing and Woman in the Dunes. This was me starting work on my 2021 Macabre Month of Horror. You can see I started all the way back in March for my series that I do in October. And then no one fucking watched those videos, so, fuck me, I guess. Then I watched Dune for my David Lynch tier list. That was the original Dune, because the new one wasn't out yet. Then Beyond the Black Rainbow, another one for the Macabre Month of Horror. Godzilla vs. Kong, got around to that. Did not like it one bit. Where I liked Kong Skull Island, like the tiniest bit, I actively disliked Godzilla vs. Kong. The big fight at the end is fun, but everything else, woof. Okay, so that was 13 things in March, kind of a small month, and one of those was a TV show. That was the Seinfeld season. Okay, into April. We had another Joe Bob presentation, which was Demoni, aka Demons. Again, covered that in the Macabre Month of Horror. Then I rewatched Mad Max Fury Road. Total masterpiece. Okay, season 1 of The Leftovers. That's another one that I had been working on for like a couple months. Really, really enjoyed season 1. Haven't started season 2 yet. Then Peninsula. That was the sequel to Train to Busan. Do not bother with Peninsula. It is no good. Just rewatch Train to Busan again. Okay, Versus. Covered that one in the comments for again. Tetsuo the Iron Man. Then I watched Malcolm X. Actually finished Malcolm X in April. I think I started it back in March. It's a very long movie. Then I started rewatching What I Lie to You again, which is one of my favorite shows. This is one that I will binge, kind of, because the episodes are only like 20 minutes or whatever, and, you know, I can do other stuff while I'm kind of like half listening to it, you know. So What I Lie to You season 14, or rather series 14, because it's a British show, and series 6, I don't know why I did 14 to 6. Oh, because 14 was the new one, and then I went back to 6. And then I watched 7, and then I watched 8 and 9. I don't know why I started with 6. I guess because I don't like the Angus Dieter seasons as much as I like the Rob Brydon seasons. I think this time on rewatching, because I've rewatched the show many, many times, I think this time I just picked the first season where David Mitchell had his beard, and I went from there as an arbitrary starting point. Tyrannosaur, rewatched that one for my video essay. My Dinner with Andre, classic, one of the classics I'd never seen, really good movie. Dead Man's Shoes, The Thick of It, series 1, great show. If you like Veep, go back and check out The Thick of It. It's like a predecessor to it, a progenitor to it, if you will. I watched Whistle and I'll Come to You, which is this old, it's like a ghost short film. I think it was actually made as like a episode of a TV series, but I don't know what the TV series was. Like a TV movie, but it's like 40 minutes, a little ghost story. Very simple, but it's, you know, kind of effective. It's good. I'm Alan Partridge, series 1. Fucking hysterical. I love the Alan Partridge character. HBO Max took off the series. They took off all the Alan Partridge stuff while I was like halfway through the second season, so I haven't finished the second season yet. I watched Nobody. I wanted to like it more than I did, but, you know, whatever. The Father, the Anthony Hopkins movie. It's excellent. Hopkins gives one of his best performances, if not, I mean, arguably his best performance. The man made me cry more than once in that movie. Excellent piece of work. House by the Cemetery, that was another Joe Bob movie, as was, I rewatched Audition. First time seeing it with Joe Bob hosting, though, so that, you know, made it different enough. The Devils, again, covered that in the Macabre Month of Horror. The new Mortal Kombat movie, boo. I watched a short film called Curve. That was really, really good, actually. I recommend that short film. It was very good. It has a lot of tension packed into it without any words, and the antagonist is literally a concrete slope. If that sounds interesting to you, check it out. Then I watched Minari, Waiting for Guffman. I am going to do a Christopher Guest tier list very soon. You'll see I went through all of Christopher Guest's movies that I hadn't seen yet this year. Blue Velvet, rewatched that one. And then I rewatched Bride of Reanimator, but this time with Joe Bob's commentary. I watched Mother's Day. That was another Joe Bob one. I think that was the first of the new season. You can tell I love me some Joe Bob. Okay, that was 30 things in April. That might be my most packed month, actually. 9 were rewatches. That's a lot of What I Lie to You and movies that I was rewatching, but with Joe Bob for the first time, you know. 2 of those were short films, Whistle and I'll Come to You and Curve, and then 6 of them were Joe Bob. So, okay, in May, started it off with another Joe Bob, class of 1984. Then I watched Slacker for my Richard Linklater tier list. 4 Weddings and a Funeral. I'd always heard it was great. I found it kind of annoying, kind of insufferable. And, you know, I've liked Hugh Grant in other movies too. Like, I liked him in, I didn't like the miniseries very much, but I thought he gave a good performance in The Undoing. I thought he was good, and kind of thought he gave the best performance in The Gentleman, actually maybe outside of Colin Farrell. But I still think he's a good actor, but I just found him really annoying in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. I jumped ship on that one. Didn't like it. Then I watched Ginger Snaps, hosted by Joe Bob, yet again. Really good. I didn't even know it was a werewolf movie. I was so unfamiliar with Ginger Snaps that when it turned out to be a werewolf movie, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? So that was fun. Watched Greed, because I'm a big fan of David Mitchell, actually is why I watched it. And I like Steve Coogan too, of course. Love the Alan Partridge character. Greed was, I feel like the script needed another draft, but there's a lot of potential there. Rewatched A History of Violence. Then I watched Fried Berry, another Joe Bob thing. Finally saw Casablanca. That was definitely the biggest classic film I hadn't seen yet. So, caught up on that finally. Then I watched Badlands, which was actually my first Terrence Malick film. Then I watched Treasure of the Sierra Madre, excellent film, another old classic. Watched Bringing Up a Baby, that old screwball comedy with Cary Grant. It's funny. I don't like it as much as some of the other screwball comedies of the era, but it is very funny. Dead and Buried, another Joe Bob. A lot of Joe Bob on here. The 39 Steps, one of the Hitchcock films I hadn't seen. I rewatched Mandy, the Panos Cosmatos film, but with Joe Bob hosting. Oh, and I watched Maniac Cop, also hosted by Joe Bob, and Maniac Cop 2. And you'll find that Maniac Cop 2 shot its way onto my top 100 horror films list. I loved Maniac Cop 2 way more than I would have expected. First one's still fun, but 2 is way, way better. I watched Asylum Blackout for the Zoller script. Not a great movie. They also changed the script a lot if you go back and read the script. Taskmaster Series 11, which I think was the new one as it came out. Oh, here we go. I'm Alan Partridge Series 2. I guess I did finish it. Rewatched Basket Case with Joe Bob's commentary. And rewatched Armor of God for that review that we did. So check out that Armor of God review. Your thoughts on that. Dead Heat, another Joe Bob movie. Did not like that one. Psycho Gorman. Blackadder goes fourth. I had seen the other 3 Blackadders way in the past, and the Christmas special I've seen multiple times actually. Had never seen the 4th one, and it was very good. But that ending is surprisingly emotional for how unemotional the entire rest of the series is. Cajillionaire, I watched it. I didn't like it as much as some people do. I can see why some people like it. It just didn't connect with me personally, but I like that it works for other people. I don't want to take anything away from them. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. Just wasn't quite my cup of tea. La Casa Lobo, reviewed that in the Macabre Month of Horror. Evil Speak, that was another Joe Bob one. Enjoyed that one a whole lot. Spontaneous Combustion, rewatched that one for the Deserves More Respect video I did on that one. Link to that is in the description. Then I watched Day of the Beast with Joe Bob. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia season 9 is where I'm up to. I'm way behind on that show because they pumped that show out so fast. I watched the original Little Shop of Horrors. I've seen the remake, but I've never seen the original. I watched it with Joe Bob hosting. And another Joe Bob, Humanoids from the Deep. And then lastly I watched Dead Man. Oh, that was 2 different months. I didn't break between May and June. May I had 21 things. 8 of them were Joe Bob and 2 were TV. In June I had 13. 2 were TV, 5 were Joe Bob. Okay, into July of 2021. Started off with a rewatch of Midsommar. I was watching the director's cut this time, which I'd seen Midsommar before, but I hadn't watched the director's cut yet. Rewatched The Proposition because I was planning on doing a video about it, and I just never got around to actually writing that video. Watched Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, and then Stranger Than Paradise, and then Mystery Train, because I was working on my Jim Jarmusch tier list. I watched a movie called Bite Me, which I don't think is available anywhere except at film festivals because I was sent a private screener by one of the producers of the movie. I rewatched Manhunter, the Michael Mann movie. Saw Bill and Ted Face the Music. Enjoyed it. As someone who, I only saw the first 2 Bill and Ted's last year, so I don't have super nostalgia for them or anything. I think the new one's about on par. It's a little weaker in some areas, but it's a little stronger in some other areas potentially, so it kind of balances out. I watched Shoplifters, the Japanese film from a couple of years earlier. Very good. Charlie Wilson's War, didn't really like that one very much. Boiling Point, that's one of Takeshi Kitano's movies. Collective, great documentary, highly recommended. It's the kind of documentary where you can forget it's a documentary. It's that good. It's that fly on the wall, and they got such access, and it's such a compelling story that you might think you're just watching a really captivating political thriller. Then I watched Morvern Caller, whatever. Definitely my least favorite Lynn Ramsey movie so far. I've loved the other movies I've seen from her. Didn't like this one all that much. Faces, John Cassavetes again. Liked this one a lot. Then I watched Prime Suspect 1 and 2. Those are both miniseries starring Helen Mirren, back in the day, detective shows. Both very good, those first 2 seasons. Started season 3, didn't like it as much. Didn't finish it. I would finish it eventually. That's the end of July with 16 things, 2 were TV. Into August now. Started off August by watching The Car, which I watched for a That Fat Samurai Guy live stream of The Car versus Christine. The Car I thought sucked, but the other 2 guys in that stream both voted for it, so whatever, I got outvoted. Then Men in Chicken, Riders of Justice is when I was doing my Mads Mikkelsen tier list. Then I watched The Duelists, which is an early Ridley Scott movie. Then I watched Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich. I watched it because Zoller wrote the script. I've never seen any of the other Puppet Master movies, and this movie kind of sucked. Yeah, I watched the original Swedish Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I'd seen the Fincher version a bunch of times, but never the original. Now I saw the original and can confirm the Fincher version is a whole lot better, but the Swedish one's still pretty good. Then I watched The Girl Who Played with Fire, the Swedish sequel. That one I did not like hardly at all, actually. And then how little I liked The Girl Who Played with Fire is what stopped me from watching The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, because I just didn't care anymore at that point. Then I watched James Acaster's new special, his Cold Lasagna, Hate Myself 1999, I think is the full title. And it is excellent. Huge fan of Acaster, one of my favorite comedians. Then I watched The Insider, that Michael Mann movie. If you can't tell, I am working on a Michael Mann tier list, but he's got a couple more movies I still need to watch first. Then I saw The Man Who Wasn't There. Just felt like rewatching that old Coen Brothers movie. Then I saw Quo Vadis Aida. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but it was one of the best foreign language film nominees, and it was quite good. The lead performance is the highlight. She gives an incredible performance. In like 3 different languages too, which is impressive. Then I watched A Field in England, which I know a lot of people really like and say is underrated. I didn't find it underrated. I didn't like it all that much. September started off with Alita Battle Angel, which I watched for a review and for an upcoming Robert Rodriguez tier list. I just have one more Robert Rodriguez movie to check out before I can do his tier list. I just got to see Red 11. Okay, then I watched The Trial. That's the old Orson Welles' The Trial, starring Anthony Perkins. Then The Seventh Seal. I watched both of those on a flight, I think. Interstellar, for my Christopher Nolan tier list. Then I saw The Killing. Not the TV show The Killing, but that's the old Kubrick film, The Killing. Then Last of the Mohicans. Then The Counselor. I'm also working on a Ridley Scott tier list, but he's got so many movies. I might have to do like a part 1 and part 2 for him. Okay, then I saw August Osage County, just because I had never seen it. It was a big deal a few years ago. I was not interested until I learned that it was written by Tracy Letts, who I think he's a phenomenal writer, so I watched it for that. It does definitely feel like a play adaptation, which bothers some people. It never bothers me. Then I watched A Better Tomorrow 2, and then 21 Grams. I have an Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu tier list coming very soon. The Card Counter was my first trip back to a theater since COVID hit. Saw the Card Counter in a theater, Paul Schrader's new movie, and loved it. I ended up reviewing it. I forgot about that. Yeah, I ended up reviewing it. Right after that, I watched Light Sleeper, another Paul Schrader movie, and they actually end with the exact same ending, which I didn't realize when I had seen Card Counter. Then I saw the new Candyman, again in the theater. I watched Body of Lies, another Ridley Scott movie. Didn't like that one. Then I watched Drunken Angel, one of the Akira Kurosawa movies that I hadn't seen yet. The Cobra Verde, one of Werner Herzog's film I hadn't seen yet. Werner Herzog tier list in the works. Then I saw Malignant. I loved the twist, and then everything that came after that. I thought the rest of the movie before that had no business being as awful as it was. It does not work as like tongue-in-cheek satire parody stuff. The twist is great, but like everything before it is a slog to get through. Then I saw a film noir double feature at the New Beverly, which consisted of Double Indemnity, which was a rewatch, and that's my favorite film noir. I've ever seen it a bunch of times. And then a first watch of The Big Sleep, the old Humphrey Bogart. And there was a little short film that played beforehand called I Love My Husband But, just a little slapstick short film that was fun too. Then I saw Wrath of Man. I have a Guy Ritchie tier list shot, just not released yet. Then I finished finally Gangs of London Series 1. I had started it way back when it premiered, and I just, it takes me a while to watch TV. Then I watched Those Who Wish Me Dead, which wasn't great, but I really liked Aidan Gillen and Nick Holt in the 2 villain roles. I thought they were good. I liked how they were written too. They were very effective and very like straightforward and brutal. The 2 of them made it worth watching for me, even though the rest of the movie didn't like all that much. Okay, that was 23 total for September. 1 rewatch, 1 TV. Now we're into October. Kicked off October by watching The Empty Man and enjoyed it. Then I watched Open Grave, which is a movie I'd never heard of. I just plucked it at random off a library shelf, and it was not good. Sometimes that gamble works out, sometimes it doesn't. Then I watched Triangle, which is interesting, but it's a little long-winded, needed a little editing. Then I watched Black Death from the same director. Then I watched Richard Linklater's first film, It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books, which is like barely a movie, but important in the development of Richard Linklater, so it's all worthwhile. Final Destination 2. I think I watched all the Final Destination movies this month, except I'd already seen the first one. I'd already seen the second one too, actually, but I don't think I ever saw the ending beforehand. Then I watched Repulsion, then Dolls, Final Destination 3, then Qui-Gon, then The Red Shoes. It's a South Korean movie. There's a couple movies called The Red Shoes. This one's the horror movie that's from South Korea. Not good. I watched the Straw Dogs remake just out of curiosity. It's not good. I like the original a lot. This one, no good. The Dune remake, saw that. Talked about it in my Denis Villeneuve tier list. I watched Hatchet, then I watched The Final Destination, the fourth one, which is definitely the worst of the series. Then Final Destination 5, which is like a slight improvement on the fourth one, but still very bad. Then I watched The Lodge, which did not work for me very much. Good atmosphere though. Then I watched Poltergeist 3, which is, it's not horrible. It's not as bad as some people say. Not great though. Then I watched Halloween Kills. Didn't like it. To those who did like it though, I'm glad you like it. I don't like the direction it took. Psycho 3 and Psycho 4. I think I'm going to do a video about the Psycho sequels, so I won't say anything about them right now. Then we get to Halloween Night. The rest of these were all on Halloween. Body Bags, Children of the Corn. I'd never seen it, the original Children of the Corn. And I didn't like it. I don't know why it's a classic. I think it's very messy. And then Starry Eyes, which is probably the biggest surprise of Halloween. Really good, underrated. People Under the Stairs, that one, I had seen like the first half of it before I was finishing it. Then Pulse, that's the Japanese Pulse. I think it's a Kiyoshi Kurosawa movie. Then Excision, didn't work for me. Then Amityville Horror, and then Frailty. That was 8 movies on Halloween. I also watched half of another movie that turned out to not be a horror movie, which I had thought it was, and then it wasn't. So, into November. The Ninth Configuration, that's the other movie that William Peter Blatty directed, other than Exorcist 3. Very good. That guy got done so dirty by the film industry. He deserved better. Then I watched Mayor of Easttown, finally. I was a couple months behind on that, but I don't know. I didn't really get why it was so overblown. I thought it was a very stock standard, detective murder mystery kind of thing. It didn't blow me away or anything. The performances and characters are definitely a cut above, but I think the plot is a cut below. So, anyway, I watched Thelma. That's the Joachim Trier Thelma. Then I rewatched The Royal Tenenbaums right after shooting my Wes Anderson tier list. Mr. Robot Season 4. Finally finished up Mr. Robot. Great show. Then Thelma and Louise. Another classic I had never seen. For Your Consideration, the Christopher Guest film. Confession of Murder. I have a review for that one coming out extremely soon, so stay tuned. Then A Mighty Wind, another Christopher Guest movie. Taskmaster Series 12. And then Time, which is another Kim Ki-duk film. And then we're up to December this month. So we're closing in on the final stretch here. Peppermint Candy, which I just reviewed. Check out the review for that. One of my favorites I saw all year. Then I watched Owning Mahoney. Great gambling film. Great Philip Seymour Hoffman performance. Then I watched Blazing Saddles. Classic Mel Brooks comedy. Then I watched A Taxi Driver, not Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, but the South Korean drama A Taxi Driver. Kang Ho Song is great as usual. Then I saw Succession Season 3. Holy shit, is that show good. That show just gets better every season. Then I finally started in on Small Axe, that Steve McQueen series. I didn't have Amazon Prime for a while, that's why I had a lot to catch up on. So far I've only seen Mangrove from Small Axe, but I intend to watch the rest of them. Then I watched Joe Bob hosting Ice Cream Man. Then Series 1 of Stathlet's Flats. Became a huge fan of that show instantly. Hilarious. That guy, Jamie Demetriou, or however you pronounce it, he's a fucking hilarious, great comedic performer. Then I watched An Elephant Sitting Still. That's that really long, like 4-hour Bohu movie. Then I saw No Sudden Move, the new Steven Soderbergh film, and I liked it more than some people seem to. Then I saw the new Matrix Resurrection. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it very much. I liked some of the meta commentary, disliked some of it, and I kind of didn't like much past the first act. Then I watched Extraction and was surprised how much I liked it. I was expecting it to be mediocre at best, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought the action was great. I want to see more from director Sam Hargrave, who he was a second unit action director and stunt coordinator and stuff. So and that shows in the action. Great action. Then, unfortunately, I was like, oh, well, I heard Extraction was mediocre, and I ended up liking it. Heard the same thing about Kate. Let me check that one out. But no, Kate really was not good at all. Then I tried to watch Tick, Tick, Boom. And I say tried because I had the most visceral fight or flight response to that movie that I do not understand. Every fiber of my being was screaming, get this away from me, as soon as the first musical number started. So I jumped ship. I didn't get past the first musical number. I'm going to chalk it up to a me problem, not the movie. Don't know what it was, but yeah, that movie induced issues in my physiological systems, and I had to get it away from it. Then I watched Power of Dog. I don't know why. Okay, it's called The Power of the Dog, but for some reason I always want to call it Power of Dog, and I don't know why. Then I watched Last Night in Soho, which I can finally do my Edgar Wright tier list, so that's coming soon. I'll talk about that in that video. Then I saw The Suicide Squad. Never even watched the other one because I mean everyone said it was terrible. I've seen tons of videos about it and like clips and stuff. But I watched the new one and I was surprised how much I liked it. I'm not really a superhero guy. As you can tell from my movies, I didn't watch like any superhero stuff other than this and The Boys, but I actually quite enjoyed The Suicide Squad. I thought it was very funny. I like James Gunn. I think he's a funny writer. Then we had another Joe Bob to round out the year. I watched Deadly Games on Christmas because that was a Christmas movie. I also watched half of the other Joe Bob Christmas special from that year, which I can't remember the name of because I fell asleep during it, just because it was really late, not because it was like bad or anything. What was that movie called? Killer Christmas? Something generic like that, I don't know. And the last thing I watched so far was Don't Look Up, the new Adam McKay movie. Adam McKay, his directorial style doesn't really work so well for me. Don't Look Up had some good stuff though. It's all very obvious, but the social commentary it's like saying important stuff. It could just say it in a little bit more digestible of a way. The cast is crazy, what he brings together. I know I'm way behind on it. I finally just started Squid Game. I didn't have Netflix for most of the year, so I missed out on, that's why I'm catching up on all the Netflix originals in December here. So I'm recording this on the 27th. If I happen to see anything else before this video goes up, I will scroll it across the screen right now. So, oh wow, look at that. Wow, I watched that in the future. So yeah, that's everything that I watched in 2021. The grand total is 217 movies. So grand totals, right? Out of 217 movies, 23 were things I was rewatching, which means there was 194 first watches. Definitely been prioritizing first watches lately over rewatching stuff. Even though sometimes I would, maybe want to rewatch something, I've been kind of holding off in favor of, rounding out my cinema experience. 28 were seasons of television, so there you go. And out of curiosity, I just wanted to count up how many were in foreign languages, and 45 were foreign language films. So a little lower than I would have expected, actually. And that was my 2021 in viewing. Yeah, check the description. There's links to a whole bunch of shit that you can check out if you need more stuff, and I will see you in the new year.